Okay, we've all been there, right? You're like 5 messages deep into a chat with an AI and it completely forgets what you asked just 2 minutes ago. It's so frustrating. Well, today, we're going to dive into something called AWS AgentCore Memory. It's a tool that lets developers build AIs with a perfect memory, making those annoying amnesia moments a thing of the past.
But let's really dig into the core problem here. I mean, how can an AI actually remember a conversation? Without some kind of memory, every single thing you say is a totally fresh start. You ask a question, it gives you an answer. You ask a follow-up, and it's got no clue what you're talking about. It's not just annoying, you know? It makes any kind of deep, meaningful conversation pretty much impossible. And that's exactly the challenge the AgentCore is designed to solve.
So, how does AgentCore pull this off? Well, the whole answer is built on this one simple but really powerful idea: the event. Just think of it like a single line in a transcript. Every single thing that happens, whether it's a message from you, an action you take, or even a change in the system, it all gets captured as its own little event. This is the absolute core building block for the AI's memory.
Now, the key word here is immutable. That's a fancy way of saying that once an event is recorded, it's basically set in stone. You can't change it. So why is that such a big deal? Well, because it gives you a totally trustworthy, unchangeable history. You get this perfect, step-by-step record of everything that happened, and that is the foundation for giving the AI real, reliable context. And of course, every piece of information needs some kind of structure, right? You can't just throw it all in a pile. So AgentCore breaks down each event into 3 key parts. First, you've got the ActorId, which just tells us who is talking. Is it you, the user, or is it the agent? Then there's the SessionId. This is what groups all the related events together into one single conversation. And finally, the payload. That's the good stuff. That's the actual content, like the text of your message.
Now, that payload, the actual data, it can come in 2 main flavors. You've got conversational, which is pretty much what it sounds like, the back and forth chat. Then you have blob, and that's for basically everything else, like images or custom JSON data. Now, listen up, because this is the crucial part for any developer out there. Right now, only the conversational data gets fed into the AI's long-term memory. So what does that mean? It means if you want your AI to actually learn and remember context from one session to the next, you have got to format that info as a conversation.
All right, so we know what an event is. We get the concept, but how do you actually, work with it? This is where we get practical. Let's walk through the life cycle of an event. These are the basic commands a developer is going to use to manage the agent's memory. And honestly, it's really straightforward. It pretty much boils down to 4 main actions. First, you create event. That's how you save a new piece of information. Then you can get event to pull up one specific memory if you have its ID. What if you need the whole story? That's where ListEvents comes in. It lets you reconstruct the entire history. And finally, need to get rid of something for, say, privacy reasons, you just use DeleteEvent. Create, get, list, delete. Super simple, but incredibly powerful.
You can really think of CreateEvent as the engine driving this whole system. I mean, imagine a food delivery app. The user says, "I want pizza." Boom, that's a CreateEvent. The AI comes back with, "What toppings?" That's another CreateEvent. The user replies, "Pepperoni." You guessed it, another CreateEvent. Every single little interaction just becomes another link in this growing chain, building out that rich history the agent needs for context.
And then, on the flip side, you have ListEvents. This is where all that stored memory actually becomes useful. It's how an agent can do something cool, like summarize a long conversation. It just calls ListEvents, gets the whole transcript, and then can feed that to a model to get a summary. Or, before it says anything new, it can quickly list the last few events just to make sure it's staying on topic. This is what turns all that stored data into actual active intelligence.
Okay, so that covers the basics. Create, list, delete. Got it. But now, this is where things get really clever. Let's talk about a more advanced feature called event branching. This is for when conversations get a little more complex, maybe not so linear.
And the best way to think about this is like creating an alternate timeline for the conversation. Seriously, imagine a user sends a message, but then they go back and edit it. Or what if you wanted the AI to explore, say, 2 totally different ways to respond to a question? Instead of just overriding the past, branching lets you create a brand new path forward, all while keeping that original timeline perfectly safe and intact.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote from the docs explains it perfectly. You can basically pick any message from the past and say, okay, right here, let's start a new path from this point. You give that new path a name, and you can even jump back to the original conversation whenever you want. It's just a super flexible way to handle complex conversations. And here's what that actually looks like in practice. When you're creating a new event, you just add this little branch parameter. See it there? You give it a name that makes sense, like edited conversation in this example, and then, this is the key, you give it a root event ID. That ID is the anchor. It tells AgentCore the exact message in the past that this new timeline is branching away from. So, we've covered a lot, right? We've talked about events, their life cycle, and even this cool branching trick. But let's just take a step back for a second and ask the really big question. Why does any of this matter? Why is this detailed, event-by-event approach to memory so important? Honestly, it all comes down to one thing: control. Really granular control. Because every single interaction is its own little event, you can rebuild the entire history of a conversation whenever you need to. You can analyze patterns to see how people are interacting. You can build in super smart features like summarization. And, this is huge, you can handle data privacy. If someone wants a message deleted, you can just pinpoint that one single event and remove it without messing up the rest of the conversation. That level of control is what turns a basic chatbot into a genuinely intelligent agent.
Look, at the end of the day, tools like this aren't just about storing data. They're about unlocking a whole new class of applications, apps that can actually remember, adapt, and interact in a way that feels a lot more human. So that really just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. If you could give your application a perfect memory, what would you build?